one thing that really strikes me when you're looking at this next phase of your career again is this theme of there's a lot of people on the sidelines right now in this country, a very, very divisive landscape who have a lot of opinions, very, very contentious, but not necessarily a lot of doing to be able to drive the change that I think all of us feel like is so important. As the world enters this post-pandemic reality, you've talked a lot about how we need to use this time to reevaluate, that this is a red light moment, but this also could be a turning point for us. Currently, you've been talking about potentially setting your sights on a very different kind of role that could take you to the governor's mansion in the future with a potential bid to run for a political office. I'd be curious, what were the signs or the green lights that led you to this moment or led you to this pivot? And I ask this because I talk to a lot of people who have run for political office, and obviously there needs to be the condition in the world where they feel like they can be a force of change, right? There has to be a context for them to that pull to really get unlocked. But oftentimes there's also a moment or a person where they feel like that type of route is one that's possible or one that they finally see themselves in.
It's a good question because I'd always done this, and I think this is a great exercise for all of us to do. Imagine if you're president of the world. What would you do? We're not going to be president of the world, but it's a great exercise to gain awareness of what the hell you give a damn about, what you don't know about, what you do know about, what you really care about, what maybe you need to learn about. It's a great exercise. I've never been into politics per se, but as we know, everything gets politicized. We talk about the pandemic. We can go on. That may be a whole nother episode we could talk about. Oh my gosh. I'm settling more into I'm more of a statesman probably than a politician. So then I go, well, maybe that's not really politics. And I go, well, maybe it should be. Because I do believe, and I think many of us can agree on some level, that politics needs repurposing, that politicians need to reclaim what it is they do, what their purpose is. The business of politics has lost its direction, or we're in a place right now where its compass is definitely not as clear as it should be. We have a society in America that is, we don't really have a national society. It's almost like we've taken our individualism at this point and run to our bunker and said, no, we're not a collective anything. I'm watching out for me, you watch out for you. Now that would be the definition I would not be a proponent of selfish I was talking about earlier. I believe there is a definition of selfish, that is what is personal and best for us is also best for the most amount of people. So in the last few years, I would say this, I'm happy for myself that I've got the confidence to look a job like running for governor or politics, look it in the eye and actually consider it, and not be so impressed with the idea that I'm like, oh, wow, because I've had people come to me, oh, you should. And so I've gotten past the level where I'm like, wow, really? Me? Because now I'm involved, I'm looking it in the eye. So I can weigh, I'm now in a position of trying to actually weigh it. I'm doing my best to weigh it. I'm going, is that really my embassy? Is that where I can be most useful, of the most service, to the most amount of people, to myself, to my family as well? Because I do believe it's got to be absolutely personal. And if it ain't personal, don't put the skin in the game, because this is going to be a tough game and it's a necessary game. Do I want to get in into that arena? Is that my category? Is that, like I said, where I am most useful? Like I said, I'm more of a statesman. I know I've got a talent. I believe I've got a talent for storytelling. I've heard a friend of mine says storytellers are the great legislators. I've got to go be somewhat of an artist in it to see the rhythms of what it is that I do, because I know there's thousands of daily choices and compartmentalization and administrative choices that have to come with the job, and you better be damn good at that job to take that position. At the same time, it's got to be more than just running in circles, which right now I feel like politics is we're just chasing the tail a little bit right now. It has lost its way, and it's going to revolutionary little circles, and it's not evolving. And we've learned over this last year and a half, we've gained great distrust, a lot of distrust in our politicians, in our leaders. Somehow, I hope that the people in the position of politics can gain back that trust. That we do need people to look up to, that we do look up to people that we go, I trust the information you're giving me, that it's best for me and the most amount of people. I think we have a challenge, right now when we talk about, America, land of the free. Hang on, let's table that for a second. That's dessert. Let's go back to the meal. We need to question right now, do we really want to be the United States of America? And I don't mean that in a condescending way. I don't mean that in a challenging way. I mean, it's an honest question that we need to ask ourselves, because we're not necessarily acting like it. So is there do we want to have a collective responsibility, a social contract with each other as Americans? It's a question we have to answer, because right now we're not acting that way. And I think we're all drinking the Kool-Aid. I think we're much closer.
What's the Kool-Aid? Is the Kool-Aid that we're so divided? And I ask this because I loved how you talked about how somehow coming to the middle is this radical, crazy thing, or finding common ground is like sacrilege to your core belief. It almost reminded me in your book when you talk about this concept of outlaw logic.
Right.
That's something that seems so sound, and a decade ago would have felt sort of emblematic of this country, right? The ability to find common ground now feels antithetical to where we are as a country.
Oh yeah. And I think that's part of the Kool-Aid. Meaning, and if you drink enough of the Kool-Aid, your teeth rot and they fall out. But I do believe that the center is the majority. I would argue that it's probably in the 80 percentile. And the center and the common sense and the common denominator of values are sailing the ship down the middle, and we're trying to get mutinized by the pirates on the far right and the far left, and we're giving them a lot more credit than they actually deserve. But they have the voice box. Again, we talked about rubbernecking earlier and how we like to see health and disease. They have the voice box. They have the megaphone. They sound loud. They sound large. They don't have the numbers. And if the center, we just look around and go, hey, we've actually got the majority here. Our common sense has the majority here. Our ability to compromise, our ability to listen to each other has the majority. Once we notice that and start acting on it, then I think we pull the veil off our face. Right now, I just think we're being sold that bill of goods, that we are that divided. And if you're sold that bill of goods, even though it may not factually be true, it can become true. So I'm not saying it can't happen, but I think right now it's almost a perverse marketing campaign that's being sold to us, and we're gonna have to talk about sacrifice again. Individually, my goal is, can we individually realize the capacity we have, the larger capacity we have that we don't give our damn selves credit for? Because anybody can make a policy. We can legislate and put it across the board and make the law, but it doesn't happen unless we click it right here in this frontier right here. And that's on you and me. And how many of us can look in the mirror and go, I'm putting myself on the line. Don't have to change the world. We'll try to be a little bit better here today. But a simple thing. Better father, better friend, a more fair boss. Whatever that little thing is, want to do. That's where it happens. That's where a collective change happens right there. Now, that takes us being the policemen of our own council. That takes us being the legislators of our own room. That's hard, because we know what we do when we go back home, we're in the dark. We think no one's watching. We can get away with it. No, it's what do we do in the dark, and how do we feel about it in the dark? What do we do when we're alone, no one else is watching? That's a place that I think is really fertile ground. If we can trigger that and help people understand that actually is selfish. You're gonna win. You're gonna get paid. Just trust that you'll delayed gratification, that you will get more ROI by trying to be a little bit better, a little more true, a little more fair today. And that's what we just don't trust, because we want it now. We want our immediate gratification right now. I'll deal with the consequences tomorrow. Moira, don't worry. I'll deal with it. Well, don't make it so hard on yourself. We got to make it. It's give ourselves a little more credit.
I have a belief in like pay now, pay later, right? And eventually you're going to pay the price, and you might as well sort of invest the time and energy now.
Invest in yourself, invest in each other. I mean, 19 of 21 successful civilizations didn't die from the outside. They committed suicide. They imploded. That's not my quote. That's fact. And a lot of historians have talked about this. And you could look at, if dynasties have gone on for an average of 200 years, we're at 245. America, a little bit longer than most, but look at what's happening. If we don't, that's what I fear, is some version of a civil war that we're already teasing right now, and an implosion. So we don't need to do that. we don't need to do that. We're better than that.
But it's certainly this really critical and inflection point in terms of
Yes, it is.
the road, the path that we're going to take forward. I want to wrap up our conversation with a quick speed round, Matthew. A couple of quick insights that the show is the takeaway. So really quickly, I want to go through a couple of questions to get a few more of your quick insights and leadership thoughts. So it'll take just one or 2 minutes. So are you up for it?
I'm up for it.
Okay. You're a very productive person. Obviously, you get a lot done in your day. Is there one thing you do each morning that sets you up for a successful day?
Give myself that first hour of wake up. First of all, check in with myself before I roll off the mattress. What's that?
If you were to describe who you are, the core of your DNA in one word, what would that be?
Spirit.
What's on your perennial to-do list that just never gets done?
Go through the next box of these journals and diaries I've been keeping for 37 years. I carry them with me everywhere, and I dare myself to look into them. And I did with the book, but I've got 80% more that I haven't gotten to.
Wow. Well, that is at least a treasure trove. Mine is like much more mundane than that, but far more boring. What's the biggest misperception people have about you?
Lack of intentionality. I think most people think I just kind of roll out of bed and go, hey, press record. What are we doing? I'm a big preparer. I love to prepare.
Is there a quote or mantra that you live by?
Just keep living. What else is there to do?
One rule or phrase that you wish could be banished from our vernacular?
Oh, unbelievable. Stupidest word in the dictionary. Silly. Silly word. It just happened. Good or bad, it's believable. Believe it.
When you're feeling burnt out or don't have that creative energy, is there one thing that you do that helps you get unstuck or find that energy again?
Well, I'm working on now taking a nap. It can press reset.
Winston Churchill was a big napper. Some of the greatest leaders were the biggest nappers.
I get it.
Slowing down to speed up.
Yep. When we're running on reserve, and I'm very good at running on reserve, but boy, if I can go click out even for 30 minutes, I can come back and go, now I see clearly. I'm glad I didn't open my mouth and answer that question 30 minutes ago because the answer was going to be clumsy. Now I'm ready for it.
What's the best piece of advice you've received on whether you should run for political office or how you should think about that decision?
I think, as I said earlier, and the changing of a word or definition, I can completely click and change my perspective on things. Thinking of that job or that responsibility as a statesman and not a politician just rearranges and makes me engage with the idea and try to see, well, how would you navigate? How would that work? Because there's a game with politics, but politics also should be a very serious business, and I'm more interested in the business of serving people than the game of how it's played and the game that's being played right now, which is do whatever you can to preserve your party. Well, that already locks out 50%. So that doesn't seem to be the way.
Well, and last question, the speed round. I don't know if you'll answer at this point, but Democrat, Republican, or Independent?
Not answering that yet.
You get the pass on that one. That's what I figured. So, Matthew, the last question I ask every guest on this show, the show is called The Takeaway. If people were to look at your life story, your book, really, I mean, I loved it. Remarkable lessons and insights. But what's the moral of the story that you want them to take away? Is there one lesson that you think, especially at this moment in time, that you can offer people given your own experiences as they think about navigating their own life forward?
There's many. Let me bring up one, though. And I think especially in this time, in whatever version we come out of the COVID times, in whatever version that we may be saying, hey, this is a pandemic life we live in from now on. Whatever that is, we've all gone through, it's at least been a yellow light for everybody the last year and a half. Red light for many. There's been death, there's been loss of all kinds of things. Understanding that we did have a collective experience, mostly a negative one, but we had a collective experience, more than a national experience, a worldwide species experience. Understanding that what as you and I have a new similarity that we didn't have before, even though we just met today. And anyone out there, with anybody you run into, they were affected. Something happened. Their floor was moved. Just understanding that it's not just us. Call that empathy, call it whatever. We can get through and solve problems so much better, I found, when we have someone else, or we realize in the human experience that someone else is going, hey, me too. Hey, me too. And then we'll go, oh, you too? Oh, okay. Now, okay, let's collect. There's some amnesty that has to be in our hearts coming out of this, but also match the amnesty with let's pull up the bootstraps. We got to build our way out of this time. But everybody's got to toe the line, and everybody's been through some real setbacks over the last year and a half. To know that collectively, because a lot of things that happen in our life, we go, no, that just happened to me and my family. No one else really does know that. Oh, that just happened in my city or my community or my state or nation. No, this was worldwide. What did we learn from it? How did we get better? Did we rearrange our value priorities in a way? Because everyone thought about it, whether they were conscious of it or not. Every one of us thought about it because we were forced to. We were like forced into a sort of pseudo monasticism. Everybody was, and we didn't all enjoy the company, did we?
Every day, definitely not every moment of every day.
So that what I would say is understand we've all been through something collective here, and let's come out of this and go, oh, okay, you too, yeah, me too. So let's do this.
Well, I love it because a collective experience means that you can at least then find hopefully the common ground to collectively work toward a better place.
Yeah.
Well, Matthew, thank you so much for your insights. Again, the book Green Lights. It was such a fantastic read. So many insights shared, and I'm really excited to see what's ahead.
Me too. I am too. I promise you, I am excited. And I'm really, as I've said, I'm really measuring where can I be most useful to me, my family, to the most amount of people. And I'm going through a process now of that mix I talked about very early on. I have some goals, things that I'm going to want to achieve, but I'm also sitting back trying to really take care and making sure I'm nurturing the non-negotiables in my life. Family, children, having a little time straight with them without certain work and accomplishments I have to do right now. So I'm excited too. Thank you.